Hello, Gretchen. It's nice to be acquainted with your work. There is a lot that's good here. Looking at the first drawing, it appears to me that you redrew it for your final, which isn't necessary. Elaborating, embellishing the work that you submit as a draft is entirely okay. A look at the final, and I believe you've drawn that with charcoal, and the medium specified for that particular drawing was pencil. I like the way that you get the petals folded in on each other within the blossom. Now for the bucket of walnuts. I wasn't sure what you'd drawn until I read. The perspective on the foreshortened bucket is excellent. I think that more detail with the walnuts would be good. We should be able to know what it is you're portraying. I think we could have more clues, more information, and that probably goes for the rose too. But you do have a nice touch with the material. I'd like to see you get a little more involved with your drawings next week. Hi, Trevor. I see, like Gretchen, you redrew your work with the first assignment. And of course, that's not necessary, but it can be your choice if you like. Also, I'm wondering, is this a drawing in charcoal? I want to make it clear that when we talk about pencils, we're thinking of graphite. And I know it gets a little confusing when charcoal comes in a pencil form too. Now I want to take a look at the larger drawing, which is quite lovely, and I looked in the discussion but didn't see mention of the sort of stick that you were working with. Looks like a stick you might throw to a dog. The degree of involvement is really beautiful in these drawings, and I'd say a little bit of a surrounding might help the second one. Hi, Adam. I noticed that you have gone out of your way to find some interesting subjects. I especially like the shells. It seems as though we're seeing the front and the back of the same sort of shell, which adds interest. It might be that you were a little heavy-handed with the cast shadow. Squint and try to judge value. Now, with the daffodils, I'm wondering if that paper was 18 by 24. It seems as though the texture's kind of coarse for that scale, and also, charcoal will be clumsy on a smaller scale. I think that here you probably have more daffodils than you can do justice to in the time available, and I'd say per drawing, spend a couple of hours. Hi, Tracy. Your work with the first drawing assignment is really exemplary. I can't tell if you redrew the second version, but I kind of think you didn't. Maybe used a different setting on your scanner. What you wound up with is really beautiful. I love the way that thread from the dried husk sort of twists out into the foreground, and you've done a lovely job of managing the shadow and making it look distinct and soft compared to the husk. As for the second drawing, well, I feel as though this was drawn by rote without observing carefully a subject that was before you. And further, I did make a point in a drafts review that a tree is not a still life, unless it's a very small tree like a bonsai. Maybe you can afford some explanation so I could understand better what you were up to, or perhaps you'll want to redo this drawing. Chris, you have a lot of work here. Now, I understand that your dog ate your leaf and you drew a second one for the final version of the first drawing. I actually favor the draft. I like the way that the leaf looks crinkly now that I know it's a leaf. I like the diversity of light and shadows there. Good drafts for your second drawing. Also, I believe you took one of those and worked on it further, adding more value. Now, understand that a still life is typically an arrangement of inanimate objects. In this case, you are asked to choose objects from nature, and I tried to provide some examples such as a bird's nest or a pile of stones. Margie, I see that you have been hard at work. I see your diligence and how it's bringing you someplace. I still feel that with the first drawing assignment and even your second version, there's a strong reliance on line and a disinclination to see the gradual variations in value. I'd say squint. And also practice helps. Now, it seems like you're another person who is working out of doors with a motif for the second drawing, so listen to what I was saying to Chris, just so you know for future. You know, one little thing, if you were looking at, I believe this is a log, it would have to be very curvy for you to see the cut ends, to see both of them, that is. Hi, David. I like the quality of your first drawing, though I can't quite detect what it is, which might mean that you could give us more clues for future. Also, it seems that there could be more light on your drawing when you photograph it. Well, listen to what I had to say to Chris about a tree as subject matter for a drawing that's meant to be a still life. Also, I noticed you're using a little bit of what appears to be white Conte, and I'd say hold off on that. It's actually not a material we'll be working with, but I'd like you to wait unless you've already had a little experience before. Okay, David, now that I see the whole flower pot, I understand better what you were saying in your post about the first drawing assignment. I really do like what you did with that drawing. It appears that you might have drawn it all over again. I'm not entirely sure. It's an unusual situation where you draw just one isolated aspect of a subject, but I think that you've done it pretty well here. As for the difficulty with charcoal, I think once you get more comfortable with it, you'll find that you can sweep in values very rapidly, that it's a very quick way to draw and a great way to cover a large page in a short period of time. I like what you've done with your second drawing. It's really pretty exciting. I'm wondering about that cast shadow and if it should go higher on the wall or the patio beyond. Joshua, I know we talked about this very drawing on the phone and I hadn't seen it then, but it is very lovely, this final version of your first drawing. It must be a jonquil. All of the detail in the flowers is really a marvel, and I like the way that you're handling the pencils. It might be that the shadow of the flower itself is a little strong. It might be more dominant than you'd like. Izzy, what a beautiful handling of the graphite. I like the muscular quality, the organization of strokes, the strength of the units of strokes here. You know, this drawing seems like it's being breathed on the page. There's not an awful lot there, but you know, I think it's enough to hold the page. Well, Craig, thanks for being an example of dedication for our class. When you submitted your draft for the first drawing, you wowed us, and it's clear a lot of time went into the creation of that, and just as much or more went into the finishing of the same drawing. I think that you've had success with those cast shadows that I was pointing out. Maybe the edge could be more dissipated with the shadow for the upright pine cone on the right. Lovely drawing of your wife's plastic orchid. You know, it's no wonder that drawing goes faster with charcoal. Notice how you can mark with the tip, with the side. You can cover a lot of area very quickly once you're accustomed to working with charcoal. It really is a great medium. I noticed that you've added some white Conte, and it's okay to do that if you please. I don't recommend it for people who are rather new to drawing, though. Hi, Debbie. You know, I noticed you wrote quite a lot in the discussion, but not so much about your own work. Here, I observe that you've got the right materials. It looks as though you might have drawn on a rather small scale because the texture is so pronounced on the paper here with your first drawing. I'm not sure what that is. I want to say it's a stone or something like an arrowhead. Now, with the second drawing, well, listen to what I said to your classmate, Chris. With regard to this subject matter, you know, there's something lovely about the way that this tree is sculpted. It looks very dimensional. At the same time, it looks a little odd. Its proportions are very atypical for a tree. Well, Becky, you've been diligent, and I think that diligence has paid off. The subtle adjustments that you made to the drawing of the tree are quite lovely. You know, I'm liking the shadow at the top of the paper, but I think that that was created by the photography. Well, Pat, I'm glad to see this drawing. You may note that I wrote something about it in drafts. You know, I can see that you're seeking to let the petals be individual. For instance, in that flower on the left, they're bunched together in an irregular manner. They emanate from the center aspect of the flower. But, you know, from my experience with daisies, they have a different kind of leaf, and I wonder whether like Craig's flower, this one might be an artificial one. There's a certain enjoyable cartoony quality to this drawing.